Smoke filled the sky over Valcora, a beautiful alien planet now broken by war. Once full of singing towers and glowing gardens, its capital was now a battlefield. Two royal families, House Draxel and House Seren, fought for the crown. The royal court stood in ruins. Fires burned outside the palace walls. Soldiers guarded the gates, unsure who was enemy and who was friend. Inside the hall, alien nobles argued loudly. "The peace treaty is dead," shouted one from House Draxel. "They killed my brother," cried another from House Seren. The alien king, tall and proud but tired, slammed his hand on the throne. "Enough! We are already burying our future. Do not bury our souls." Then the doors opened with a deep groan. Every head turned. A stranger stepped through the smoke. Not a royal, not a soldier, not even one of their kind. A human. His name was Commander Rian Holt, and he walked slowly into the room. His uniform was worn, his boots were dusty, he carried no weapon. Guards raised their rifles. "Stop him!" A noble barked, but the king raised a hand. "Wait." Ryan stopped at the center of the hall. He looked around the room, calm and steady. "I come in peace," he said. Gasps echoed. "A human? Here? Impossible." Ryan continued. "You don't know me, but one of you did. A prince named Kale Seren." The name silenced the room. Prince Kale was dead, killed months ago in an ambush. He was loved by some, hated by others, but respected by all. Ryan reached into his coat and pulled out a sealed crystal device. "This holds his last words," he said. "He gave it to me before he died." The king stood slowly. "How do you have that?" "I found him," Ryan said, voice steady. "He crashed on the edge of Sector 9. My ship responded to the signal. He was wounded but alive. We spoke. He asked me to take this message and bring it here if war ever started." A noble growled. "Lies! This is a trick." Another spat. "No outsider touches our prince." Ryan met their anger without fear. "He trusted me. I didn't come for power or money. I came because Kale begged me to." The king looked at the crystal. "Prove it." Ryan pressed the crystal. It glowed. A familiar voice filled the room. "Brother, if you hear this, I am dead." Gasps again. Even the guards lowered their weapons. I saw it coming. The betrayal. The plan to start war between our houses. But it was not House Seren or House Draxil. It was someone else. Inside our court. The message played on. Prince Kyle spoke of secret meetings, poisoned reports, and a plan to keep Valcora divided, so others could control its resources. The human who brings you this saved my life, even if only for a short while. Trust him, for he has no reason to lie. When the message ended, the room was frozen. No one spoke, until one noble snarled, "A voice can be faked. This human plays with tech like a trickster." The guards moved again. Rian didn't run. He looked at the king and spoke slowly. "Before Kale died, he told me something only you two shared. A code between brothers." The king narrowed his eyes. "Speak it." Rian took a breath. "We are two. Stars one sky, one light must fall so the other may rise." The king's eyes widened. That phrase was known by only two people in the galaxy. He stepped forward, emotion in his voice. "That was our bond since we were children." The angry nobles fell silent. Even the doubters could not explain what they had just heard, but outside the war still raged. The people still suffered. The traitor, whoever they were, was still hidden inside the court, and the message had only begun. The king looked at Ryan, long and hard, then said, "You are no longer a stranger." He turned to his guard. "Take him to the royal chambers. We must speak." As Rian was led away, many nobles whispered to each other. Some feared the truth, some feared exposure, and one quietly left the room. Eyes burning. Hands clenched. Because if Ryan had more proof, he was dangerous. The human had walked into fire. But it was only the beginning. The king's chamber was high above the burning city. From its windows one could see fire, smoke, and broken towers. But inside there was only silence. Rian Holt, the human commander, stood in the center of the room. His coat was dirty, his boots worn, but he stood tall. The crystal message from Prince Kyle Saren still glowed faintly in his hand. Across from him stood King Valen, tall and broad-shouldered, but with tired eyes. "You say my brother gave this to you," the king said slowly. Rian nodded. "He died in my arms. He asked me to bring this to you, if the war ever started." The king didn't speak. He turned and looked out the window. His city, the heart of his people, was falling apart, and a human of all beings had come to stop it. "Tell me," the king said at last, "how did you meet Kale?" Rian stepped forward. "It was 6 months ago. My scout ship picked up a distress signal near the asteroid fields. It wasn't a normal crash signal. It was coded. I went in." The king turned. "You went alone?" "It was supposed to be a rescue. I wasn't expecting a prince." Flashback: a burning wreck, metal twisted, oxygen low. Rian kicked open the hatch and found Kyle inside, bleeding, trapped under metal. "Stay with me," Rian said. Kyle had laughed weakly. "Human, didn't think we were worth rescuing." "You're wrong," Rian replied. He carried the prince through fire and sparks. Kale lost blood fast. Rian did what he could, sealed wounds, gave oxygen, whispered calm words. But Kale knew. He wasn't going to make it. On Rian's ship, the prince lay in a recovery bed, too weak to sit. "War is coming," he whispered. "Not between Draxel and Seren, but because someone wants it." Rian frowned. "You have to tell your people." "I won't survive long enough. But you, maybe they'll listen to you if I can't." He pulled out a small glowing memory crystal from his pocket. It was wrapped in gold markings. "Only the royal core can open it," Kale said. "But they'll believe you when they hear the voice." Rian took the crystal carefully. "I don't want power." Kyle smiled. "That's why I trust you. Present." The king stared at the crystal again. He always believed in strange things. The king said, "Even humans." "I didn't believe it myself," Rian admitted. "But I saw what he was willing to die for. I had to try." The king sat down slowly. This war, it was already building before he died. The nobles push for vengeance. My advisors feed the fire. And now I wonder, how much of it is real and how much is poison? Just then, a royal guard entered. He bowed quickly. "My king, the council demands to see the human again. Some claim the message was forged." The king looked at Rian. "They will not accept your word alone." Rian replied, "Then let them see more." He reached into his coat and pulled out a second object, a tiny, black chip with blue edges, Kale's final backup recording. Hours later, the great hall was filled again. The nobles sat in rows. Soldiers stood tense at the walls. The air smelled of fear and pride. The king stood and said, "This human brings a second message. If it proves false, I will see justice done." Rian stepped forward. "This one is harder to hear, but it's the truth." He inserted the chip into the main speaker node. A clear voice echoed through the room. "If you're hearing this, it means I've failed, and someone close to you is betraying you." Gasps. The voice continued, naming names, locations, meetings. A list of times the traitor had moved silently through the court, turning families against each other, falsifying reports, even blocking peace talks. Then came the final line. "You will know the traitor by his crest, black with 2 silver teeth, the House of Kren." All heads turned. Lord Kren, seated near the front, froze, then slowly stood. "This is nonsense," he hissed. "A lie spoken by a dead man." The king narrowed his eyes. "Open your sleeve." Kren hesitated. Guards moved. He pulled back his robe. The black crest with silver teeth gleamed under the torchlight. The king's voice was a whisper, but it shook the room. "You killed my brother." "No," Kren shouted, stepping back. "I did what was necessary. You were weak. Peace is weakness." Ryan stepped forward. "You tried to burn the galaxy for your own crown," Kren growled. "You shouldn't have come here, human." He reached for a hidden blade, but Ryan moved faster. With one swift motion, he tackled Kren to the floor. Guards rushed in. Kren screamed, but it was too late. The traitor was caught, but the danger was far from over. The court buzzed with fear and shock. The king looked at Ryan. "You've torn open wounds we tried to hide." Ryan replied, "Now you can start healing." The royal court was shaken. Lord Kren, the once trusted advisor, had been dragged away in chains. His house crest, the black symbol with silver teeth, had been burned from the walls. Some nobles stood in silence. Others whispered nervously. They had all followed him. And now they feared what might come next. King Valon sat on the throne, his face heavy with thought. The war outside had slowed, but not stopped. Loyalists to Kren still held cities, and many questioned if the truth had come too late. In the center of it all stood Rian Holt, the human who had brought the storm. That night, Rian was placed in a guest chamber, not a prison but not free either. 2 guards stood outside his door, not to protect him, to watch him. He paced inside the room, hands behind his back. The message was delivered, the traitor exposed, but the war wasn't over. The court had seen the truth, but some didn't want truth. They wanted control. Suddenly, the door slid open. A tall, slim figure stepped in. Her skin was soft gold, her eyes sharp. She wore no crown but moved like royalty. Liara, the king's niece. "I asked the guards to step away," she said. "I needed to speak with you." Ryan stood still. "You believe me?" "I believe in what my uncle refuses to say aloud," she whispered. "That this war has become a disease. One you've tried to cure." He sighed. "But not everyone wants to be healed." "No," she agreed. "Some want the disease to spread because they profit from the bleeding." She walked to the window and pulled aside the curtain. Outside, the fires had returned. One of the towers in the lower city had been hit. Explosions lit the night. Liara turned. "There are still generals who follow Kren's plan. Even with him gone, they will not stop." Ryan frowned. "Then why are you here?" "To help you escape," she said. Ryan stepped back. "What?" She pulled out a small key disc. "They plan to accuse you of working with Kren. They'll say you faked the message to divide the court. But I exposed Kren. That's why they fear you." Rian was silent. Then, "Where would I go?" "To the old command tunnels under the palace," Liara said. "From there, we find the backup file Kale mentioned in his second message, the one he left in the Vault of Dust. It contains the names of everyone involved." Ryan blinked. "He said he buried that file under stone, guarded by fire." Liara smiled faintly. "That wasn't a metaphor. That vault is real." They moved quickly. Liara led Rian down forgotten halls, past broken statues and dark halls. No lights guided them, only her memory and a dim map on her wristband. Behind them, voices grew louder. The court had discovered his absence. "They'll think you helped me," Ryan said as they ran. "I know," she replied, "and I don't care." They reached the tunnel's entrance. Stone, ancient and cracked, covered with thick vines. She pressed her hand to a symbol etched in the wall. It glowed softly. The wall slid open. The heat struck them at once, dry and deep like breath from an ancient dragon. "The Vault of Dust," she said. "No one has walked inside for over 100 years. Inside, it was dark and full of ash. Statues of past kings watched them from both sides, their faces hidden under layers of dust and heat cracks." Rian coughed. "Why is it so hot?" "The firestones," Liara answered. "This place was built over an active energy core. It powers the vault's locks. They reached a metal door at the end. She entered Kale's code, etched into her memory from childhood. The door opened with a hiss. Inside lay a single console glowing faintly. Rian stepped forward and activated it. A new message played. Kale again, but this time angrier. If this is being watched, it means truth was not enough. This file holds the names of every noble, officer, and spy who helped Kren turn brother against brother. The file loaded. Hundreds of names, ranks, locations. Liara gasped. Half the court, even city governors. He knew everything. Suddenly, the vault shook. A loud boom echoed. They found us, Rian said. Liara pulled him behind a stone pillar. We upload the file, then we fight. He looked at her. You're sure about this? She smiled. You walked into our fire. Now let me stand in yours. Outside, soldiers prepared to breach the vault. Inside, a human and an alien princess stood side by side. The truth was in their hands. But so was the war. The royal palace was burning, not from bombs or fire, but from truth. The file Rian and Liara had found in the Vault of Dust had been uploaded just minutes ago. It spread across Valcora's data network like a storm. Every screen, every comm, every noble's chamber. It showed names, powerful names, people who had worked with Lord Kren to keep the war alive. Inside the throne hall, the king stood alone with his guards. He had not spoken since the message finished. His face was like stone. His hands shook slightly. The nobles argued, some shouting, others silent with guilt. One commander yelled, "This is a trick, that human made these files." But too many names matched old secrets. Too many lies now had faces, and some of those faces were still sitting in the room. Suddenly, a guard's comm device beeped. Movement near the northern tower. A voice warned. No uniforms. Moving fast, armed. The king's eyes narrowed. Assassins? Before the guard could reply, boom! An explosion shook the throne doors. Screams echoed as smoke poured into the room. From the shadows, dark-clad soldiers rushed in. Not regular troops, silent killers, faces hidden, blades glowing red. Their orders were clear. Kill the king, kill the human, erase the truth. At that same moment, deep under the palace, Rian and Liara ran through ancient tunnels, fire behind them. The data upload was complete, but the vault's self-defense system had begun melting down. They burst through a hidden door into a side corridor, breathing hard. They'll know what we did, Liara said. They already do, Rian replied. And they're coming. They reached the throne chamber's lower entrance. Rian peeked through a cracked stone wall. Chaos. Nobles ducked. Guards fought back. The king was on the ground, shielded by 2 loyal soldiers. Too many, Rian muttered. Then we even the odds, Liara said. She pulled 2 pulse blades from her belt, ancient serene weapons. Rian grabbed a dropped rifle. They burst in. One assassin charged the king, blade raised. Bang. Rian's shot hit the attacker's shoulder, spinning him backwards. Another assassin leaped toward Liara, but her blade met his midair. She twisted, fast and silent, dropping him in one motion. The court stared in disbelief. A human and a princess fighting like one. Nobles began rising. Some grabbed old weapons. Others just stood, confused, afraid. But one voice roared across the hall, "Protect your king." It was the commander of House Delar, once silent, now standing tall. More joined. The chamber shifted from panic to power. Together they pushed back the assassins. Rian reached the king's side. "You okay?" The king grunted. "You were supposed to be in a cell," Rian smirked. "You're welcome." A final attacker raised. A hidden blaster, aimed at Liara. She didn't see him. Rian did. He dove, tackled her to the ground as the blast hit the pillar above them. Dust exploded. When they stood again, the chamber was still. The assassins were dead, or gone. Blood on the floor, ash in the air. But the truth had survived. So had the king. Later, as the throne room was cleaned, nobles gathered again. This time, quieter. Rian stood beside the king. He expected anger. Instead, the king said, "Today, you reminded us what it means to fight for something greater than pride." He turned to the room, and you all saw it, not from a general, not from a noble, but from a stranger. A human. Some bowed their heads. Others couldn't meet Ryan's eyes, but one voice rose. "Liara, if outsiders care more for our peace than we do, then we have lost more than land. We've lost ourselves." Silence. Then applause. Slow, soft, but real. Later, that night, Rian sat outside the palace walls watching the stars. Liara joined him. "You know," she said, "you saved a king today." He shrugged. He didn't seem that happy about it. "He will be." She looked at him. "You didn't have to come back. You could have escaped." "I didn't come here to run," Ryan said. "I came to end a war." She smiled. "You're doing more than that." He raised an eyebrow. "What am I doing?" "Changing us." Above them, Valcora's sky lit up. Peace messages spreading across systems, telling the galaxy the truth was spoken. The traitor fell, and a human stood in the fire for a world that wasn't his. The palace was quiet for the first time in weeks. No alarms, no shouting, no fires in the distance. Peace had not yet reached every corner of Valcora, but it had begun, and the spark that lit it wasn't royal, it was human. Rian Holt stood in the royal garden, breathing in the strange, sweet air of alien flowers. The plants here glowed faintly, just like the stars above. Behind him, heavy footsteps approached. King Velan. He no longer wore battle armor, just ceremonial robes of silver and blue. His crown looked heavier than ever. "Commander," the king said, stopping near him. "You've done what centuries of blood failed to do." Rian didn't turn. "I didn't stop a war. Your people chose peace. I just reminded them it was possible." The king smiled, tired. "You speak like a leader." Ryan looked at him now. "I'm not one." "That may be," the king said, "but I owe you more than words." Later that day, the grand court gathered again. The nobles, bruised and cautious, filled the chamber. No music, no celebration, just curiosity and unease. Rian stood beside the king. Liara sat behind him, proud and quiet. The king raised his voice. "Today, we stand at the edge of something new. The war has slowed. The truth has been spoken. But without this man, none of it would have happened." All eyes turned to Ryan, some respectful, some suspicious, but none could ignore him. The king continued. "I asked him what reward he would accept. A fortune? A ship? His own territory?" The room leaned in, and he said. The king paused. Ryan stepped forward and said it himself. "I don't want riches. I don't want land. I don't want to rule." Murmurs echoed. "Then what do you want?" asked a noble from House Vorn. Rian looked at the king. "Forgiveness." Confused whispers filled the chamber. "For yourself?" someone asked. Rian shook his head. "For us," he said. "For humans. Years ago, during the early expansion, human colonies attacked Valcoran ships by mistake. The war that followed was short, but the wound stayed." The king nodded slowly. "I've read your history," Rian said. "Some of your people still blame humans for everything. I ask that you let that pain go. Officially, publicly." The court fell silent again. He wasn't asking for power, he was asking for healing. The king looked around the room. "You see? The human who held our truth now asks us to forgive his own." A general stood up. "My brother died in the human Valcoran skirmishes. I once hated them all." He looked at Ryan. "But I saw this man protect our king with nothing but a tool and a message." He bowed. Others followed. But the king wasn't done. He stepped forward, removed his crown, and placed it gently on a velvet cushion. Then he turned to Ryan and said words no one expected. "I offer you a seat beside me, not as a guest, but as High Speaker for Peace in the new council." Not just for Valcora, but for all who seek to build instead of destroy. Gasps filled the chamber. Even Ryan froze. You want me to speak? For your people? He asked. I want you to show them what peace looks like, the king replied. Because they've already seen what war becomes. Rian looked at Liara. She gave the smallest nod. Then he stepped forward, faced the court, and said, I accept, but only if one more promise is made. The king raised an eyebrow. What is it? That we don't forget those who fell, that peace doesn't erase pain, but grows from it. The king bowed. Agreed. Later, Ryan walked the gardens, again, this time not as a visitor, not as a soldier, but as a voice for peace. Liara joined him under a glowing tree. You turned down gold, she said. Turned down your own province, you even turned down a royal ship. I didn't need those things, Ryan replied. What did you need then? He smiled faintly. To know I didn't just survive something. I changed it. She looked at him. You didn't just change it, you changed us. In the sky above, communication satellites lit up. Messages of peace were already being sent across star systems, not written by kings, not ordered by warlords, but inspired by one human who asked for nothing except a chance to heal what no one else dared to touch. The palace gates opened slowly. A long line of citizens, young and old, rich and poor, walked through with calm steps and cautious hope. It was the first peace day in over 30 years, and it had been a human who made it possible. Inside the high hall, banners of both royal houses, Draxel and Seren, hung side by side. Soldiers from both sides now stood together as guards. Children played in the gardens. The war had not been forgotten, but for once, it wasn't leading. At the center of it all stood Commander Rayan, Holt, but he didn't wear armor today. No gun, no military badge. He wore a long robe gifted by the king, white and silver, with a quiet symbol stitched on the back. A flame turned into a tree. The court whispered when he entered. They still weren't sure what to call him. Warrior, stranger, speaker, some simply called him the one who stayed. As the celebration began, King Valen stepped onto the throne platform. He raised one hand. The room fell silent. Today, he said, we do not reward a hero. We recognize a lesson. Eyes turned to Ryan. Valen continued, this man came to us with no army, no title, and no claim. He brought only truth, and a heart stronger than war. Whispers moved through the room. Rumors had spread that the king had planned something unusual, a gift greater than land, greater than a crown, something impossible. The king held up a glowing scroll. This, he said, is my final decree as a wartime king. A pause. From this day forward, the line of rule shall no longer be bound by blood, but by wisdom. Shock. Gasps. Murmurs. Even Liara, seated behind him, blinked in disbelief. The king turned to Ryan. I offer you, not a throne, but something older, a title lost to time. He stepped down, walked straight to the human, and knelt. Keeper of balance. A voice above the court. A judge when justice fails. Not bound to any house, not bound to me. Ryan stepped back, stunned. I don't know what to say. The king smiled. Say yes, and change the shape of power forever. One noble stood, anger in his face. He is not of this world. Another shouted, our children will answer to an off-worlder? Liara stood slowly. No, she said, they will learn from one. Her voice silenced them. Ryan looked across the room. These were the same people who once tried to lock him up, chase him out, or blame him for truths they didn't want. And now? They looked to him for something more. He stepped forward, spoke clearly. I will accept, under one condition. The king raised an eyebrow. That this title dies with me, Ryan said. I don't want it passed to those who chase power. Let the people choose who comes next. A long silence, then the king nodded. So be it. The scroll was placed in Ryan's hands. He didn't bow. He didn't raise his fist. He simply stood, and the room, for the first time, stood with him. After the ceremony, Liara found him by the high walls of the palace. "You were offered everything," she said. "I didn't take everything," he replied. "You changed how we rule. I only reminded your people that power can be shared." She studied him for a moment, then smiled. "You're more than a soldier, Ryan." He shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe just a stubborn one who didn't know when to leave." In the streets, below, people lit sky lanterns, bright lights floating into the air. Some held notes, others held seeds. Symbols of starting over. Children cheered when the first one disappeared into the stars. And in the royal court, where titles were once sealed in blood, a new chapter had begun. Not written in fire, but in light. The king's reward wasn't gold. It wasn't glory, it was change, and Ryan, once a stranger, had accepted it not with pride but with purpose. Years passed. The scars of war on Valcora began to fade, not completely, but enough that children could sleep without hearing explosions, and elders could speak of the past without tears in their eyes. The cities were rebuilt. The banners of peace stayed flying, and the stories changed, not of generals, not of kings, but of a human, the only outsider, who became something no royal ever dared to be. Trusted. Ryan Holt never sat on the throne. He never wore a crown. He never asked anyone to kneel. And yet, when he walked through the capital, people bowed. Not out of duty, out of love. He worked in quiet ways, meeting with farmers whose fields were still poisoned from the war, visiting spaceports to help unify, laws between alien races, sitting with children in old war zones, teaching them how to build instead of destroy. They called him many things now. The bridge, the voice between worlds, the king without a throne. But Ryan just called himself a helper. In the court, his title still stood, keeper of balance, but he rarely used it. Instead, he made sure others had the tools to lead. He taught justice. He reminded them to listen, and when people forgot, he didn't punish them. He asked them to remember. One quiet morning, Liara found him sitting near the edge of the royal gardens. He was older now, a few lines around his eyes, hair touched with gray, but his gaze was the same, sharp, calm, watching everything. "Another long meeting?" she asked. Ryan nodded. They argued for 2 hours about trade routes. "Let me guess," she smirked. "You said 5 words and ended it." 3, actually. "Ask the farmers first." She laughed. "You're still dangerous." They walked side by side through the garden. Children were learning under a tree nearby. One boy held up a wooden figure. "Look," he called. "It's Ryan the Brave." Ryan chuckled. "I never carried a sword." "You didn't need to," the boy said. "You had truth." Later that day, a small group arrived from off-world. Diplomats from another planet, one that had feared Valcora for years. They had come, not to demand or argue, but to ask how peace was built. The king welcomed them, but they didn't ask to meet the king. They asked to meet the human. Ryan met them without guards, without a speech. He poured them tea, listened, and then shared his story. How trust is not given, but earned. How peace doesn't come from power, but from proof. And how he, a stranger, had no map, only a message. "I didn't know what I was doing," he told them. "I just knew I couldn't walk away from what mattered." That night, the stars were brighter. Liara joined him again by the palace roof, overlooking the quiet city. "You've done what no king before you ever could," she said. "I was never a king." "No," she replied. "You were something harder." He smiled. "What's that?" "A beginning." She paused. "They'll write stories about you." "They already have. Good ones. Exaggerated ones," he laughed. "Still, true, at the heart." He looked at her. "What about you? You've become the real leader here." She shrugged. because I followed someone who reminded me leadership isn't about power. It's about people. They stood there in silence, two old friends watching a world they helped reshape, not through weapons, not through war, but through willingness. Later, Ryan wrote something. Just a small note placed on the wall of the Royal Archives. No name on it, no title, only a message. I was not one of you, but you let me try, and I gave you everything I had, not to be remembered, but to leave something worth remembering. Many years from now, they say, children will gather under statues and whisper stories of the human who walked into war alone and left behind peace for generations. They won't remember every battle. They won't recite every speech. But they will. Know this: one man from another world changed theirs, not by ruling it, but by believing in it.